Marianne Haltz and Antoine Lavoisier. I see a couple folks cheering. Y'all know about these two.
Yes.
So let's talk about them. Marianne's story starts when she is 13 years old. How many of y'all are 13? All right, a lot of you. Basically, almost all of them are hands in the classroom. We got a couple folks that are a little bit younger than that. But y'all, for the most part, are the same age as Marianne was when her story starts. Yeah. All right, so imagine you are Marianne Haltz. Good news, you're rich. You're a French noblewoman, a French noble 13-year-old girl. Your dad is great. He loves you a lot. He has a job with the firm General, which is basically how do I describe this? It's a private corporation that has a contract with the monarchy to extract taxes, and the people they extract taxes from, because the firm General is made up of nobles, they don't tax the nobles, they don't tax rich people, they tax the poor and the middle class. And so it's like a private contractor for tax collection. So your dad does that for a living. Your mom died when you were 3. You got your education in a convent, right? So you were educated by Catholic nuns. And your education is focused on all the things that it's expected that you're going to need as a young French noblewoman. So when you grow up, the expectation is that you're going to be a hostess, right? You're going to be somebody who brings people into your house. The skills that are important to you are, being able to entertain others, being a good conversationalist, being able to talk and entertain and welcome people in, and generally be charming, right? So, there's parts of this that you really excel at. Incredible visual artist. Marianne loves to draw. How many of y'all love to draw? All right, so far we got still like a third of the class that's very similar to Marianne. All right, so you love to draw. You're really good at languages. Marianne speaks French, her native language. She speaks English, which is a language of growing importance, and she speaks Latin. Latin is the language of the Catholic Church, which means in Europe it's sort of filling a similar role to what Arabic did in the Golden Age of Islam. So a lot of scientific works will be written in Latin. So she's got the important languages down. She has some incredible artistic skills. Naya?
So can you just write down she's linguistic?
Yep. When you're taking notes, remember you're welcome to shorten things down. The key thing here is she can speak a lot of languages. So this is your education. Now you are 13 years old, and as a 13-year-old, you get your very first marriage proposal. Yay! The dude who wants to marry you is a count, and he's in his 50s, and he's your dad's boss. So Marianne has an interesting conundrum, a conundrum that many young women will experience for many centuries before and after this. She has a challenge. She must find a way to turn down a man's romantic advances without threatening his ego. Because if she threatens his ego, if he feels insulted, he is in a position to get her father fired from his job. Yes, Chef?
Can you scoot back a little bit?
Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. So she's got to find a way out of this marriage proposal, but it can't insult the guy who's proposed to her. So her dad has a plan. He says, okay, can't be anything about this guy himself. It's got to be something that has nothing to do with him. Something that is unquestionable as a reason, where it's very obviously not an excuse. We need a foolproof way of getting my daughter out of this marriage. Aha! You can't get married if you're already engaged to someone else. So the plan goes as follows. At his job, there's a young, here young means 27, only twice his daughter's age, not, 3-4 times her age. There's a young man by the name of Antoine Lavoisier. Antoine is a promising member of the firm General. He loves chemistry, but he's not a member of the ultra-wealthy, like Marianne's family is. And so he doesn't have the resources to fund his passion for chemistry. And so to Marianne's dad, this is great, right? He doesn't want to marry his daughter off to some creepy old dude. Way better to just marry her off to somebody who's only in it for the money, right? Much better situation overall, at least in terms of Marianne's well-being. So her father approaches Antoine and is like, hey, you marry my daughter, you'll suddenly have access to our family's vast fortune. We can build you the chemistry lab of your dreams. You can continue doing the work you're actually passionate about, and I get to know that my daughter is safe. And Antoine's like, this sounds like a pretty good deal. Okay. And so they are engaged. Father's able to elegantly bat away the proposal from the 50-year-old. And they wait a solid year, about as long as they can manage, before things get suspicious, before Marianne and Antoine are married. So, 14 years old and a bride. Now, it's worth noting, they never had any kids together. You can draw whatever conclusions from that you would like to draw. Overall, it does seem like Antoine and Marianne had a fairly happy life together. Yes, Naya?
Did she end up having a kid with her second husband?
I'm not sure. I know that her relationship with her second husband was fairly contentious. There's stories about, I've got one anecdote in my mind about her, pouring boiling water onto his flowers in, the middle of an argument. But I don't know the full details about how that marriage went. My understanding is that her second marriage is significantly less happy than her first. So, 14 years old, newly married. Your husband has taken your dowry and used it to purchase a beautiful new chemistry lab and invited you to be his lab assistant. So Marianne previously had had an education mostly in things like the humanities, in language, in communication, in being charming, in being an artist. Now she's getting a hands-on education in how to actually do chemistry in this brand new chemistry lab purchased with her money. At the same time, her husband has this incredible new opportunity because Antoine only speaks French. Marianne is incredibly gifted with languages. A lot of the really important science that's happening is happening in other countries. And Marianne is able to take all those scientific papers, translate them from Latin or from English into French, and give those to her husband to read. So she's now getting the hands-on education on how to do chemistry from being his lab assistant. She's getting the theory from translating all of these important works of science. And she's getting to put all of these skills together. Yeah, Chef?
Is the guy in the photo Antoine or the old man?
Yes. So this is Marianne. This is Antoine. This is a painting of them that was created actually by Marianne's painting instructor. So the same guy who taught her how to paint painted the pair of them. And you can see some really interesting things in this photo. So first of all, notice, where is the focus in this photo?
Both of them.
Where's he looking?
Her.
He's looking at her. She's looking straight forward. So if you look at him, your eye's going to see him, see his face, and look where he's looking. Right? So in the way that this has been painted, the focus is drawn from him onto her. You can see she is sort of leaning over him. We've got the chemistry apparatuses in the background. He's here with the paper, and she's sort of at rest with him. You can also see some things that are very common in that time period. So for example, notice how they've very carefully put his thighs out in front of the table so he can show off his shapely calves, which is a thing that's considered deeply sexy on men at this point in time. If you look at a lot of the paintings of the founding fathers, you'll see a lot of the men in them are here showing their calves in incredibly tight pants. A well-turned heel is what this is referred to. So you can see we've got a little bit of sexualization of Antoine in this photo, less sexualization of Marianne, and the focus is on her. She's in the front, he's behind her. So this photo is set up. You can just use some sort of art analysis to see what the painter thought was important when he was doing this painting. So she is working in his lab. She's translating papers for him. She starts adding her own commentary to those papers. All of the skills that she was taught that people were like, oh, you're going to need this so that you can be a good hostess, those skills become critical to their success as chemists. Because it's Marianne's skill with language that's making sure that Antoine can stay up on the current chemistry. She uses her skill as an artist to paint and draw beautiful diagrams of all of the chemical equipment that they use, all their apparatuses. She's drawing out all of the experimental setups. She's the person who's recording how they did their experiments and recording what their results were. So she's sort of keeping everything organized, right? All of those hostessing skills that were supposed to be about, being able to show off young women, suddenly those skills are being used not just to bring in French nobility, but to bring in scientists from all across Europe into her house where she hosts salons where different intellectuals can gather to talk together and share ideas. So she had this highly gendered and highly class-based system of education. But those skills turn out to be critical to her success as a scientist. Audrey. Yes, you may. So, things are going pretty well for these folks. There's a ton of science that they are doing that is deeply important. These two are among the first to use what's called the balance, which is basically a set of scales, to weigh things during experiments. They are where we start seeing the idea of quantitative data in experiments. So before, when we had people like Ibn al-Haytham, when they were doing experiments, they were sort of recording qualitative things. I turned off this lantern and I saw that image disappear. Now, with these two, we're seeing quantitative data. So we're seeing data in terms of numbers, right? Before I burned it, the wood was